because we didn't prep together, like we had one session of what are you going to talk about, what are you going to talk about. We never really presented to each other. We didn't really know what everybody was going to talk about. What was interesting, empowerment, engagement, employee education, threads throughout the whole story, and skin in the game. Every one of us has some form of we're in this with our customer, dollars at risk.
Yes.
We stand to lose with you. We stand to win with you.
Yep.
Like that was really intriguing to me that somehow we all got up there, and as you started to filter through the multiple threads of commonality, we're all saying we believe so much in what we're doing, we're going to be in the game with you.
Right. I think what was also pretty interesting, you made a point about we did not prep at all together. I mean, we had a brief conversation of how our lineup was going to go, but you had made the point, we all intersected together. So the fact that we didn't prep and we intersected together, I think highlights how interconnected we are on this mission, and understanding that each one of us are best in breed in a certain area and have come together knowing that together as a whole we can deliver a much better experience collectively. And you don't see that a lot, where people are just giving other people true kudos, like I can't do what you do. I need you and you need me. It's symbiotic.
Well, symbiotic, but the cohesion was authentic, right? It's not like you're at some seminar and somebody's paying you to talk and you're just patting each other's back, right? I mean, this was really, we are all partners in this. We all can work really, really well together. Here's a proof of concept with Lance again and Shine Solar. But it didn't have this air of, oh, we're just all trying to sell you a solution, telling each other how great we are at the same time.
That's great that it came out that way.
It absolutely did. And I think knowing the cast of characters you had as well, individually, I have a high level of respect for everybody as well. So I think just the credibility of each person on stage really lends itself to.
You point out Marshall being here. What's really intriguing to me as I start to think strategically and start connecting dots, the mission he's trying to get kind of firmed up in the fabric of individual consumers, we actually can help him.
Okay.
So if you, and I haven't fully baked this yet, so it's literally off the
Let's
top.
flesh it out in real time. I like it, man.
He needs to go viral and have the consumer be the junction point of friction and change. We're communicating with employers who want the member, the consumer, to be more responsible. There's a connection point there. We can help his mission get accelerated by doing what we're intending upon doing and connecting him into that process.
Yeah.
So there's a junction point that we've got to start to think about. How do we hook him in on these? And some of these stories, Lance's story should be in something that Marshall's talking about.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
Makes sense?
It does.
Go ahead if you want to weigh in, David.
I was going to say that, interestingly enough to that, and it was something that I pointed out about, anybody can be a disruptor. Like, we're a country of disruptors. We're just pointing out stuff that's wrong. And you think about Marshall, his message can be equally pointing out something that's wrong, but having us help him talk about we can deliver on the things that you've uncovered that we never would have uncovered had you not spent 16 years trying to do that. We have the opportunity to help you do that. But without all of these folks working towards that, you become a voice that's just pointing out what's wrong, because we know there's a ton that's wrong. And that was the point that I tried to make, and that everybody, kind of piggybacked off of, is here's the problem. We're all acknowledging problem, but here are the things that we're doing. And oh, by the way, we're probably going to learn a lot during the process and pivot several times so we can get it to the right place. Rob's slide on every 10 years there's some major healthcare act or some sort of shift, and every time that happens you've got to pivot. You can't just have, here's my one strategy and it's going to work for 60 years, although that's how insurance works right now. I've been doing it for 60 years. It's
And
worked.
healthcare.
Yeah, healthcare.
And healthcare.
Well, I like the fact that Marshall is kind of being that, he's shining the light. Like, he's basically opened up the hood and said, here's what the problem is. I'm gonna bring you to it. I'm gonna try to lay it out as succinctly as possible. But like you said, he is taking the route of, I'm gonna go to education and start educating kind of the population at large rather than through the broker channel. But there's also that, hey, I've got an employer perhaps mad about the exposure of this information. Who do I go to now? Well, maybe I go to a guy like Adam. Maybe I talk to Adam about what do I do to actually put in motion some things to address those problems that I know exist on my plan. Then you pull in the True Captive, then you pull in Valence, then you pull in EHIM, then you pull in NavMD, whatever the case may be. But there is a problem. Then there's kind of that quarterback through the consultant arm, and then there's the solutions underneath that all work really well together. That's a full spectrum of solution, in my opinion. But somebody has to be the one that's really vocal, getting it out there to the member level, to the average population, so that they can understand it, but also get a little bit mad, I think, about trying to fix it. Which I think is, I think people don't know, and which is why they're not angry enough about the problem.
You know, it's when people have something on their shoulder, there's usually two ways they handle it. They get angry and they resent everything and everyone, and it becomes a negative. It drains their energy. Or they can use it as a positive catalyst. Doesn't mean they're not still angry.
Yeah.
I mean, there's times that I'm angry with how our system works, but I'm inspired that there are people that are motivated enough to step up and take it on. And I'd go a step further. And some people look at me awkward when I say, I don't believe that the insurance companies, I don't believe the system are all villains.
No.
It's really easy to point at them and go, oh, they're taking advantage of everybody. They've learned how to run a business, and that's how they run it. Like I mentioned, insurance, collect more premium than losses, you make money. Have more losses than premium, you lose money. That's how they think. Versus you get people that have taken it a step further and then a step further and said, well, it really starts with the patient, the employee, the member. If you can impact change there, if you can stimulate their emotions to do more than say this is bad or wrong and I want more and I'm going to go seek out a resolution, that's how you're going to stimulate change, right? And I think that's really critical that we stimulate that change at the basic employee level, because they're the real consumers.
Absolutely.
Not the employer group, it's the employee, but then help them take that chip on their shoulder and use that towards something positive versus, it does become a self-fulfilling prophecy of, oh, well, it's me, I'm always going to be taken advantage of. You don't have to. There are people out there that are going to help you do it.
Yeah. I just want to build on that for a second, because this is the true yes and right here.
Right.
Yes, and when you focus on the culture of your company, so as an engaged employer, searching for answers to my healthcare dilemma and financial conundrum that is causing me, when you start to create a culture that's inclusive of your employees throughout, not just a healthcare decision, but everything your company does, it's easier to get them in the room and talk about the things they want to make sure are in that plan. They want to make sure and understand how they're being taken care of. And their willingness to collaborate with their employer when they feel their employer takes care of them beyond just the health benefit. So how you handle adversity in the business when you lose a client, how you handle onboarding an account and it doesn't go well. The stories of how things go when things go well, that's good. That's not the moment. The moment of true relationship development is when adversity kicks in. And healthcare is an adversity, a moment for most of these employers. If they can take the time to first establish rapport and relationship with their employees in other areas, they're going to have great success getting this done. That's my take.
Me as kind of an outsider looking in, and our software fits within what I'm about to say, but I call on brokers a lot, but I talk to a lot of vendors like yourself, point solutions, different solutions within the healthcare spectrum. The simplification of the message, right? It's like, oh, these are all these 100 things as a broker. Let's just say, oh, you've brought to me 100 new solutions. Which one are right for me? How do I make sense of all these things and put them together? Simplify, so that it's like I have a turnkey option on the table with a Buca. Cool. The alternative you're presenting to me is like 50 different vendors that are all hodgepodge together. Is there a step in between that's a much simpler alternative to this that looks and feels as simple to execute as that? That's where I feel like we have not quite gotten to that step.
And I think it's because one of my observations, and this is beyond the scope of this industry, there's sounding different and then there's being different.
Sure.
And I think that's the fulcrum where you need to see the teeter-totter kind of move the other direction. You need to demonstrate you are different in a simple way. What Shine Solar and Adam showed is they are different.
Oh, yeah.
And they have the results to prove it. To your point, Lance could not have been more giddy to share the story.
Well, and Dave, you'll probably want to weigh in, but just this slide about this, the previous year's benefits to this year's benefits and elimination of coinsurance, elimination of deductibles, dollar generics, things like that, and going, oh, by the way, this was 15% less than what they cost them last year. So people forget, I think sometimes, especially as consultants, that $2,000 deductible is a real barrier to entry to getting the appropriate care. You can lower the cost and also improve the benefits. There is a way if you're willing to look. So that was the one thing I wanted to add. But David, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that or anything.
It's not a barrier. It's a cataclysmic failure.
Yeah.
If the majority of 90% of Americans can't afford a $1,000 health care bill, but they have a $2,000 deductible, cataclysmic failure.
Absolutely.
I mean, that to me is, it shouldn't be allowed to happen. I understand why it happens, but it shouldn't be allowed to happen. But if you think about Lance and you think about Shine, here's the funny part. So he gets it, not only financially, but then emotionally for his employees. But he said something really powerful where he said, okay, broker, we were at 10 and you got me a 5. You didn't get me a 5% decrease. You got me a 5% increase, right? Like that's the flip that most consumers don't understand is you actually still got an increase. And so when we started working with Shine, it's interestingly enough, they performed better than just about any company I've ever seen in my career, even ones that I ran as a HR professional. So if you think about that, let's just say they ran a 50%. Spoiler alert, they ran better than 50%. But think about that. A 5% increase, and let's say they got a 50% decrease, that's actually a 55% win for that company.
Yeah.
So think about that. Where could they redeploy those funds? And those employees are able to use $0 deductible. Those employees are happier because they have an insurance benefit that is almost unknown anywhere.
Yeah.
So thank you, employer, for employing me and giving me this great benefit and then reinvesting in me by deploying more of those funds into different resources. That to me is where you find how this tide flips, is saying, let me save, but let me redeploy and then create something that is so unique. When someone calls and offers one of their employees $5,000 more, which for most employees, that's a lot. No, thank you. You don't understand. I have a health benefit that's taking care of me and my family, and that's not worth $5,000. I don't want to go anywhere. That starts creating a whole domino effect of retention, attraction, morale, culture, performance. I mean, it's pretty unique.
I know the culture. Yeah, Guy, I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Because they're invested in the why and the what, and they're willing to do the how.
Yep.
It's always why, what, how. Sometimes the sequence is different. But in this case, it's why and what we're doing. And we're willing to do it the way it needs to get done. So the how makes sense. And when you get that cultural alignment, they are invested with you.
Yep. Well, it's a purpose-driven approach to the business, right?
It's OD. My wife, Karen, so she masters in OD from Benedictine in Illinois. And I went through the classes with her basically because she would share everything with me. And I've become an OD junkie.
Okay.
I believe it.
And what is OD? I'm sorry.
Organizational development.
Okay, yeah.
It's beyond HR. It's really, the softer side, the people side of the equation. And I can tell you, if Valens was an experiment, we would be a case study of shifting. Not that we were a poorly performing company or a bad culture, but we didn't have an aligned culture where it was difficult to get things done across an enterprise of 110 people. We implement easily now across 155 people. And it's because everybody's bought in to the why, the what, and the how.
Yep.
It was really interesting what you said during our meeting and session today is, do my employees know what they do and how it contributes to our function as a business? And I believe that the statistic was 96+%.
96.5% said strongly agree.
So if you come to work and you know that your work contributes to the success of the business, how doesn't that make you want to work? Like, I know what I do makes a difference. Every human being at their core, if you want to get into OD and psychology, at their core wants to make an impact or difference in their environment around them. So whatever it is, right? I mean, our 5-year-old kids around the daycare, like they want to impact what's going on around them, and they want that reaffirmant that they are making a difference
Right.
in the world. So if you got employees that do that, that's great. And every employee is like that. I mean, listen, I've watched employer after employer get it wrong when it comes to why aren't my employees working hard? It's because they don't understand what their working hard does to the bottom line and how it benefits them. If you can create that triangle, it works. Now, it's easier said than done. It is, trust me, because there's hard work. You have to have a conversation with someone and go, do you know what you're doing? And then when someone says no, most people run away from that like, oh, well, that's not a real statistic. How can they not know what they're doing? You got to look in the mirror and go, okay, we've got to do some real core work as a leadership team. And, let's talk about the work that you did when you had the 4 companies, bring them together, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we could talk about this for hours.
This to me is just such the central figure of how you fix everything in companies.
Okay.
Why do you stay at plant site?
There's a million reasons, but the one that I think resonated with you talking, Dave, is I know exactly the level of influence I have on this company, the direction. I've also been given autonomy to steer the ship, if you will, from a sales perspective, how I want to approach it, and it's bearing fruit. But as we grow, I'm helping directly in that growth. There is no questioning of what my responsibility is.
Purpose,
Absolutely is
and
purpose.
you feel valued for your
100%.
contributions.
100%.
Your employees will do anything for you, including solve the problems your customers expect you to solve in a way that's meaningful to them. And that's what I keep trying to express in our town halls. When we talk to our employees, we explain to them, you're the reason we're succeeding. It's not me.
Yeah.
It's not the COO. We're doing what we're supposed to do to guide, and the people that answer the phone with a smile, the people that get the claim out adjudicated properly on time, the nurse that gets the discharge done the right way at the right time, that transfers care and coordinates care in a way that's meaningful to the member, they're the ones making our company great. And they're doing it because they believe in our mission and our purpose, and they support the way our leadership functions and treats them. That's the truth.
It's no dissimilar than having a general and having a high level of morale at the army. Your soldiers are the one that are actually executing on some sort of plan or fighting the battle itself. The general is just there to ensure that the strategy is in place and that the people believe in the mission, and the morale is high as you go as well, because they'll do anything.
Well, the general doesn't win the war, right?
Yeah, the general, he doesn't even fight the war. Right. So
why don't we finish up with some closing thoughts?
Yeah.
How does that sound?
Love it.
Good?
Yeah.
For me, I've always loved being with people, because people is where you can find out the most about what you're doing, if it's right, if it's wrong, does it resonate, do you need to, and when you get into a room and you're taking on one of the biggest Rubik's Cubes in the country right now of healthcare, you never know how people are going to respond. But I saw people nodding their head. I saw people thinking about what they could do. I saw a gentleman take 3 pages of notes today.
Yes.
And I was going to myself, like, this is great. I mean, this, for me, it gives me the why of what I'm doing. The reason that I spend time away from my family, or I stay up late, or, I'm here today, right? My son, one of the favorite things to do is pick my son from daycare. Love seeing his face. But I came here, and that why is because I get to see people having those wheels turn and knowing that we can be a part of that change. And my silly 10-year goal is that I'm sitting in a room with 1,000 healthcare professionals, whatever they're in. It doesn't matter if they're in patient care, provider, payer. We're looking at each other, and we simply just say we did it.
Yeah.
We fixed this thing. And every day that we do that, and events like this kind of reaffirm that what we're doing is right, and we just have to keep doing it, right? That's what we have to do. So that's my final takeaway.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your closing thoughts as well. And if you don't mind, I kind of want to weigh in as somebody
Please.
consuming the event as well. Yeah.
Yes, and absolutely. For me, I'll summarize it this way. I'll build on yours, because I like what you said. I don't want to repeat it. The journey up the mountain is long, okay? And sometimes those incremental little steps you're taking don't feel like progress, right? You're going up a mountain, you're running up a hill, you're running a marathon, whatever the analogy is. When you look backwards, when you reflect, is the most important inflection point in that process. And when you look down at the bottom of the mountain in 10 years or 5 years, we're going to see all of these incremental junctions that created the inertia to start driving real, meaningful change in this industry. I believe that. But it's going to start with events like this.
Yes.
50 people showing up in a room, 6 people getting on stage who really haven't prepared together, but are aligned with what we're trying to do together.
Well, any movement has a critical mass, but to weigh in what you're talking about, being able to look back and reflect. I had a moment last week where we flew into town, had a great presentation with a broker, ended up making a sale, and then one of the attendees at our presentation goes upon themselves to make kind of a post about how amazing this was and compared us to Uber in 2009. And so all of that is great, but you look back and go, hey, I spend every day thinking about this product and obsessing over these problems we're trying to solve. And then you present it to the first time with somebody with fresh eyes, and they compare you to one of the biggest companies in the world, and you're going, oh, okay, we're still on the right track. But you forget sometimes because the monotony of the actual process itself, sometimes you forget to take stock of where you've come.
So the grind of the day to day.
Yeah. Well, so I am grateful to be a part of this. Like every step of the way, I think in my career, I've sort of gravitated more and more to being aligned with a movement. I think something that philosophically aligns with who I am and what I want to be. And this is the type of events, right? And I think there will be a snowball's effect of continuing to broadcast this message to as many people as we can.
Agreed. Thank you. This has been phenomenal.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You're
pleasure.
Awesome.
You guys are awesome as well. Thank you.